Join Nest of Friends as we just like friends, become best of friends on Guest of Friends.
Welcome, guys, gals, non-bine pals, nesties, one and all, to the Guest of Friends, a Nest of Friends podcast. I am your host, Sketch Williams. Today, we are joined by Oscar-winning director Mark Andrews. And if you're wondering what he has directed, well, I'm sure you've heard of a Pixar classic named Brave. And if you haven't, go check it out right now. I know you know the platforms, and if you haven't seen this movie, trust me, I've looked at Mark's IMDb, and we're going to go into some of the stuff he's done. He has actually been a very influential artist, director, and storyteller in the entertainment sphere, and I am so grateful to have him here on Guest of Friends. Mark Andrews, thank you for being here.
Hey, Sketch, it's an honor to be here.
Oh, dude, this is really great. So for everyone who, welcome to the first episode of Guest of Friends. Thank you so much, Mark Andrews, for joining us on this premiere adventure as we continue to grow and foster our community in the real world here in Los Angeles and now online. So thank you, Mark, for joining us. Mark, I'm so grateful for you being a satellite to our community. We have a lovely mutual associate. Your daughter Maeve has been a member of our figure drawing community for a minute now, and we are really grateful for her to have come into our fold and bring you into ours.
Yeah, she's fantastic, and she loves the sketch by sketch, and she goes to most of them that she can. And she's found her tribe and her community, being a college graduate now and out adulting by herself. So it was a huge detail to find this community. So, and then she wanted to share it with me. And so she invited me down to one of the events, and I was blown away. It was fantastic. It's life drawing, but with the themed events, it's just so much more fun, and you guys make it really easy to be there. So it was fun.
Well, Mark, I'm really grateful for your check is in the mail for that plug. So thank you for reading the copy cold so well. But Mark, we're here to talk about you, and I think you have been such a presence, I believe, with your career and your advocacy for using technology and art in such interesting ways. And as a stagehand who is an artist, I have this wonderful relationship with technology fostering creativity in a way that's healthy and supports and actually generates creativity rather than what people are using for it today, which is to steal and I feel like kind of abuse the oeuvre and the essence of storytelling, especially with AI art. And I think having looked through your story and your journey, we're going to talk a lot about like the people that you have met along your life creatively and how you've kind of like found, fostered, joined, grown with community in your career. But I wanted to get to know a little bit more about you in some of the projects that I've heard you've worked on that I have been a kind of a fan of in a really interesting way. I have main character syndrome, as many people do in their life. And I remember going through a stage when everything I loved, no one either talked about or for whatever reason never did as well as it should. Right. And I think I owe you an apology because it seems like you worked on John Carter, and I love that movie, but bless her heart, I don't think enough people really found a reason to love that movie. And I know that might be but between that and what you've done with Supergiant Robot Bros, and we're going to talk about like how technology really influenced animation with that. I'm also seeing a lot of like your art influences aligned with a lot of things that I grew up, especially with like, I remember watching Kimba as a kid and then kind of mistaking that for us, like the prequel to The Lion King when The Lion King came out. So, and we're going to get into a Robotech debate later on in the podcast.
Sweet.
I want to know, Mark, if I gave you the question, how did you get started? Please tell me what like how you did, like whether it was as an artist, whether it was as an animator, whether it was just being a weird kid with a hyperfixation? How did Mark begin his journey?
I've drawn my entire life. My mom had some old sketches from when I was 3, worked in education. And so he would, this was, early 70s. So he would bring home stacks of computer paper that was that red and white with the tags on the side, like film strips.
My mother worked for the DOD, and as a kid who grew up like in a bassinet underneath her desk, DOS printout paper, Greenlist was my first sketchbook.
So that was my first sketch. For years, that's all we drew on, because he'd just bring home the basic garbage, right, for free. So on the back side, there was nothing there. And I would just draw on reams and reams and reams and reams of this.
Can I ask, what did you draw? Was it people? Was it creatures?
It was mostly now thinking about it, kind of analyzing myself and what I drew looking back. As a kid, you grow up being scared of, monsters. And so one way to master that is I would draw the monsters so that I had them. I could sit there and face them and draw them and understand them and be them. And you embrace that kind of power, then you're maybe not necessarily scared of that. What
a beautiful way to use your art to, especially when you were so young, to kind of get a grasp on your world and also take ownership of your emotions. That's incredible, Mark.
And it helped out during puberty too. All the X-rated things I used to draw going through puberty, was insane. So I think I tell everyone, whatever you draw, as long as it's not mean or cruel or it hurts anyone, I think that's good. And I look, plenty of ways to make a living, and the human body is a form of inspiration for all. So I'm just grateful it gets people a reason to pick up a pencil. And for me, drawing is healthy in all sense. It's totally healthy. And I'd rather get it out on the page than take it out in real life. So all the violence of werewolves tearing people apart, or military and Humvees or Jeeps shooting each other and the enemy and big explosions, I did and still all do that, attracted to the horrific things in life that are out there. That's where I spent most of my time.
Fascinating. Do you find that drawing helps you get an understanding of things that you don't necessarily have a language for when it comes to
yeah, that's a great thought. And I think so. Just thinking back, I didn't have language to talk about this. It was in my head, and it was just either scary, or the thing that made it scary was strangely attractive, and I don't know why that is. And so to me later, I realized that it was escapism for me, and not just escaping because I didn't like the real world, because there were just too many real things out there that could be scary.
Of course,
I could escape into whatever fantasy world I created, but I think at the same time it was exploring. It was exploring the all my fears and fantasies about how things can really go wrong in the world, and what would I encounter. We live 4 blocks away. Example: we live 4 blocks away from a cemetery. So every single night of my life when I went to bed, I'm going, okay, the zombies are going to rise from the dead because somebody said that was in the Bible. I'm going to, my parents had taken me to Sunday school that when the rapture comes, the dead are going to walk the earth, and I'm all, that could be any time.
Yeah.
Of course, now there's drawings of zombies, but those fears, just turns into stuff that I have to get in there and draw it to almost prep myself for the actual events.
But that's such a beautiful. Again, I'm really impressed, Mark, because even young Mark found a way to use drawing as a way to explore the world as much as most people may use it as a form of escapism. And I do think that exploration is a form of escapism, but I think where most, myself included, may use it as a form of disassociation or distancing from the current reality. I find it really beautiful that you found a way to gain a grasp on the world around you. That's powerful.
If only I knew it at the time.
I mean, I've been telling my producing partner Jen this for a long time. I don't know why this stuck out to me, but did you ever see the Will Ferrell, John C. Reilly movie Step Brothers?
Yes.
So I couldn't tell you what happens in most of that movie except that it was a delightful time. But
Yeah.
there's the moment after the bunk beds when they take their queen size beds and make them into bunk beds, and there's like a montage of them getting along. And then there's the part that we all saw in the trailer where they got the night vision goggles.
Yeah.
And I think it's Will Ferrell says, "Oh man, you know, if we only had this when we were 14." And John C. Reilly, without missing a beat, is like, "Even better, we got him now that we're 40." And
Yeah.
he's like, I think we, especially as artists, there's so much pressure. Whether you're musician, actor, visual artist, there's just so much pressure to be your best.
Yes.
But there's also so much solitary time where all of those hyperfixations that come with the demands of your chosen career, whether it's how to present yourself in an audition or how to anticipate your portfolio, snatching that one person who's going to call you for that gig. There's just so much self-doubt, self-infused like anxiety in these lifestyles.
Yes.
I think it's really cathartic and beautiful that any artist can find outlets like drawing to use that as a form to explore those feelings, to explore those ideas, and to regain ownership for themselves. And that's kind of in line with what we've been trying to do with everything here at Sketch by Sketch and Nest of Friends. Now, that said, Mark, I want to know, so baby Mark found a way to explore and understand the world a lot better by drawing.
Yes.
When does Mark go from, level 1 Pokemon Mark to like level 2 when Mark gets out into the world as an artist? And you've obviously used this to like conquer your fears, from what's under your bed to what's across the street, what's in the cemetery. Like, when does the lonely artist Mark become part of a community for the first time with his art?
That sadly doesn't happen until college. It was, my drawing was a private thing only for me. Most of my friends, they didn't draw. They were into sports, or we'd ride our BMX bikes around, or they were into to girls. Or I remember my early days, I think it was around 4th grade, getting involved in my first Dungeons and Dragons game.
Okay.
But the kids didn't really want to play with me. So I got there, we rolled up a character, it took an hour to roll up the character, and then we start playing. I go down these steps. I didn't roll perception because I don't know how to play the game. And I fell into a trap and died because I didn't make my save. And the guy says, well, and I go, what do I do now? And he's like, well, I guess game's over for you. And I walked all the way home going, this is shit. So I didn't have drawing was never in those communities, but later, once I had a successful D&D game, then that's inspiring more stuff that you're drawing and stuff like this. So none of my friends that I had liked comic books. So it was just me, and essentially my brothers would be my first artistic community, since my younger brothers also drew. So we just be drawing and looking and seeing what each other had drawn, inspired by whatever comic. So it wasn't until, even in high school, I didn't take any formal art classes. My mom tried in elementary school. There was a summer school class, but that's not the kind of art I wanted to do. It's, let's watercolor this rose petal, and let's draw this still life of a feather in a vase, and let's play with clay. And I'm not, this isn't what I want to, this doesn't even look like the stuff I'm interested in. Right.
Yeah.
And then in high school too, I tried to take an art class in high school, and it was just that on another level. And I don't care about the different materials, right? How do I do perspective, you bastards? Right. How do I nail my anatomy? So my first art instruction was all from comic books, and Frank Frazetta. They were putting out, Bantam House, I believe, was putting out those white with just a single image on the cover. But
I know exactly the covers you're talking about.
So I bought all of those, saved up my money from paper routes and doing chores. So that was that, and all the Marvel comic stuff was my anatomy lessons and how to draw things.
Yeah.
Until I got into college. And that's when I found that first artistic community where you're in a room drawing and doing life drawing and doing assignments that with a community of same people who've been drawing their whole lives too.
And this was at Cal Arts.
I had 2 years of City College before Cal Arts after I graduated.
Awesome.
And all my friends went into the military. I was going to go be a Marine. I was talking to the recruiter. During this 2-year period, I said, I'm going to take a break before I go into the Marines. I took a life drawing class that was 2 days a week, 6 hours, 8 hours a day. And then I had an illustration class and then a rendering class, which was wild. But that was kind of like I got out of that. I don't need to draw what I need to draw. I need to actually learn what I'm doing. And then the following year, my younger brother got out of high school, and he didn't want to go to the school that I was going to. So he found another school that had an animation class. So our second year, we went to the animation class. That teacher, Ed Harvey, at Allen Hancock in Santa Maria, told us about Cal Arts. And then when we found out about Cal Arts, it's like, wait a minute. I can go to school and learn how to animate and then animate for the rest of my life, which means drawing for the rest of my life. Because at this point, I didn't even know, the drawing career was Marvel Comics, right? Or doing something in comics or being a painter in records. And I applied to Marvel and I still have the rejection letter to this day. So that crushed that dream. But animation, that's drawing for a career. I didn't even know that was possible. So we got in, we applied, we got in, and I remember telling my Marine recruiter, sorry, I'm not going to go in the Marines. I'm going to art school, which is what every Marine recruiter wants to hear.
You had, how many brothers do you have? How many siblings do you have? 2
younger brothers.
Okay, so you're the oldest. You start drawing, I imagine, before even they start arriving. They
Correct.
see you doing it. Is there a little bit of a influence here, maybe, on the family?
No, I think so. That's nature and nurture, right? So I'm just sitting there being quiet and drawing, which my parents loved. They didn't have to do anything; just give me a pencil and a lot of paper. I'm going to town and being quiet. And so they see me doing that, and they're going, "That's fun too."
Well, what did maybe there's a little bit of hindsight and retrospective here, but what does that mean to Mark for being able to inspire even his brothers into something that he loves before he even had the words for it?
Well, I don't lord it over them. You owe me. No, I don't. It was just, and I think that's why I'm saying that was kind of my first community. Like they picked it up too, and now we could talk about things, because my mom loved movies, and she would take us out and we'd see all the movies, and we'd see animated movies, and we'd see all the Disney stuff, and that was impressive. Something that we knew kind of was drawings coming to life, not knowing that. But then we'd come home and we'd play. I remember our first movies that we really, really loved were all the Ray Harryhausen movies, So we'd go out and see all the Sinbads, Clash of the Titans ultimately when it came out in the 80s, that was huge. Jason the Argonauts, all of it. And then his TV stuff, 20,000, the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms and all sorts of stuff. So we loved that more than anything, because we would come back home and we'd emulate it and play in the backyard. And then we draw that stuff, and so that was the kind of world. That's where the escapism was really, really, really prevalent, because it lit up our imaginations, and there was 2 outlets. It was playing and it was drawing. My brother is my first brother is only 18 months different than I am. So we were pretty close in school. Then my youngest brother's 5 years younger than me. Okay. So he was really tagging along at the end, but was doing drawing and loved movies too. So, but Brian and I, we went to Cal Arts together. Since I deferred 2 years and he only deferred 1 year, we both got into Cal Arts at the same time. So I had a built-in roommate.
Oh, wild.
Yeah. And so we're sitting there learning the same things, and we can talk about the other students and talk about the teachers. And we already had a built-in intimacy, sharing things that made that I didn't get the alone by yourself at college experience, figure out yourself. I had a wingman the entire time.
You know, there are so many people who might be off-put by the idea of sharing such a poignant time in their life with a sibling, but I think for you to have had such a collaborative, I think that's the right way to say it, have such a collaborative relationship with even one sibling, let alone two, and then to have gone through a shared collegiate experience that way, that artists are built different, Mark, and somehow in your family, I mean, clearly it's hereditary. It's coming down the line now, as we've seen with Maeve.
All my kids are into some form of the art, whether it's drawing. Two of them are drawing. One's a writer. One's getting into directing, film. So they're
all storytellers.
All storytellers. And my wife's, my producing partner, my wife, and she came out of the theater department as an actor, so she has all of that as well. So the family's pretty much immersed now in all forms of the entertainment industry of what they were exposed to when I wasn't,
right.
And they're in. So I think for my brother and I going to school, it was more of it was survival mode. Having somebody there to kind of back you up gave you a little bit more confidence, because we weren't taking the same classes necessarily, in the what do we call them, critical studies, all the stuff that wasn't animation. We would have different classes because something interests Brian didn't interest me or whatnot. But that's where we were kind of our own people. But all of our friends we were in that community, and it was Mark and Brian, and carried through to when we got into our careers and got into the animation business.
I think this is a wonderful point to take the first break. We will be right back with Guest of Friends. Please enjoy these messages from our sponsors, which may be us for this first episode. So let's see what I say, and we'll be right back after this. Hey there, guys, gals, and non-bine pals. It's Future Sketch here with our first commercial of the podcast. We have a lot of programming at Nest of Friends, including our signature sketch by sketch themed figure drawing events. Here this month, coming up after this podcast release, we've got Out for Blood on June 20th at Lawless Brewing Company in North Hollywood. That's going to be our Last of Us themed figure drawing. We're going to have two models. One of them's going to be all dolled up like a clicker, so make sure to get your tickets for that one. Then we've got the San Fernando Valley Pride at the Van Nuys Civic Center on June 28th. Make sure to join the march, then come over to the Van Nuys Civic Center and check out all of the cool vendors, including ourselves. We're going to be doing some volunteer figure drawing. People can come and draw with us. People can come and pose for the people who are drawing with us. You don't want to miss it, and there's going to be so many other cool vendors there that I'm excited to check out, so make sure to join us so you can check them out with us. And then on July 3rd, already into the next month, we're going to be doing Heart and Spark at Geeky Teas and Games here in Burbank. That's right. We're finally doing a Studio Ghibli, and it's going to be Howl's Moving Castle theme. So come see if Calcifer shows up. Make sure to head to nestoffriends.org, scan the QR code, or visit the website, and make sure you get your tickets before they disappear, and join us and all of the other guys, gals, and non-bine pals, and see exactly what Mark is talking about in the podcast about all of our live figure drawing events. Okay, let's take it back to the show. Welcome back, guys, gals, non-bine pals, Nesties one and all. We are in the midst of our conversation with director Mark Andrews. Mark, we were just talking about your journey from childhood storyteller to collegiate storyteller and the family saga of it all. I kind of want to start transitioning into Mark's career, building his community. We can go from college to the real world. What was that like for you? And when I say this, for me, community, a lot of it gets wrapped up in career, and I want to touch base on that too. But I think you've done a great job reminding us that there's community in family, there's community in people outside of our work life, and I think those are things that people at Sketch by Sketch and Nest of Friends know really well. So I just kind of want to see what that means for you on this part of your life. Please tell us more. What was it like going from college and, you've had this itch as an illustrator drawer, and now you've become a bit of a storyteller. And it sounds like animation at this point has bitten you. What was that like before you decided to go into it real hard in the real world?
So animation had always been huge. I mean, watching Saturday morning cartoons, all the way to the afternoon stuff when Robotech came out. We were going to talk about Robotech, but I had a really love for the anime stuff that was being put on American television through being brought in through the 70s and the 80s. So it started with Kim of the White Lion, Speed Racer. Then they moved up to Star Blazers, which was an amazing epic. Then they went into the G-Force, which was the American bastardized version of Science Ninja Team Gatchaman, which was amazing. And then Robotech came out, and that was a huge kind of game changer where we would race home to watch that and sit down, because it was, and all the Japanese, the stories from the Japanese were way more intense, way more adult. It was like PG-13, and we had really started. We really loved the Warner Brothers stuff, right? Especially Tex Avery specifically. There was Rikki Tikki Tavi, which was a special that came out. I remember when the animated Hobbit came out, which was an amazing to watch, because it's such a different aesthetic and a design style that wasn't American Disney-ized kind of cartoons, which I enjoyed, but it didn't have the draw or the pull or the inspirational power that the more adult themed stuff in Japanese animation did, or the irreverent comedy of what Warner Brothers was doing, right? It was mean, and it was racy, and it was they weren't pulling any punches, and it was really, really hilarious, that kind of mocking, a sadistic mocking in the animation. So then Akira came out, and Akira blew me away. It was an anime that was all done on ones, and you're like going, holy crap, this is everything, because everybody would crap on anything Japanese animated because the whole style is built on we're making these for as cheap as we can and still good. But this, they spared no expense, and it was massive. And that was right when me and my brother were going to Alan Hancock and doing animation. So that kind of made us go, if we get into the animation industry, these are the types of movies we want to make. Right? Is R-rated cyberpunk or fantasy, whatever epics, right? And so when we got into Cal Arts, that is a Disney-built studio, right? It's a feeder school for Disney way back when. That everything and all their instructors have worked for Disney at the time. Barely had anybody working from anywhere else there at the time, though you did. But everything was, you were a Disney file, kind of when you went in there. Me and my brother worked, and there was only probably a handful of us that worked. And there was a special level in Cal Arts. There was this huge 3-story, 4-story center of the building. The classes were on the bottom. The first level was the freshmen and whatnot. And then you had the second, the third level was for everybody. All the Disney files were on one side. All the non-Disney files were on the other side. It was really weird how we organized ourselves. But that's I was pushing against everything there, the types of things I wanted to make, and getting into heavy discussions and arguments with my instructors, right, about what you can even do in animation, and what types of stories you can actually tell, right? And they were, in hindsight, they're going, dude, nothing like that is being made out there. You're going to be miserable, right? And it's like, oh, yes, they were right. They were just trying to protect me.
But we're also seeing a through line here, because we have Baby Mark, who has been trying to get a better understanding of reality by trying to make things tangible on paper. Now you're in the world, you're beginning your path.
Yeah.
You are seeing the game change around you between
Yes.
Akira, between, I'm sure, was this around, this was after Don Bluth too. So we've seen people
Oh, yes.
go
Secret
again.
of M was amazing because it was a little bit darker and violent than most of your Disney fare. You're going,
right.
well, why can't we have more of this? Yeah.
Exactly. And we have this collegiate Mark, this young, thriving, like brazen artist who is ready to like try to get a grab on these things that they're seeing and like kind of like make sense of what's conventional and what can be done, because you've clearly seen what Japan and what other people in the world are doing. And look, I watch Akira and my wrist just gets tense for 2 hours because I cannot imagine the years it took to do all these ones. Just one artist just doing all these ones. I mean, there's that famous Ghibli video on YouTube going around about like the crowd shot. I think it was in Kiki's, where it's just this beautiful, like
when the wind rises. It was his biopic about his dad. Where the guy's pushing through the market in the street. Yes,
you know exactly that.
Yes.
And I think it gets trended because they talk about how long it took the one artist to draw that, and it was 2 years for one shot. And then you see all of it, and then they finally show you that one shot at the end. And even in that 3-minute video, the artist in me can't help but fight back a tear, because I'm like that. And for the general audience, especially for animation fans, like, you got to be such a nitty gritty, passionate, supportive, creative person to even appreciate or conceive of the work that goes into that. That's
inspired by the crowd scene in Akira, where she's pushing through the crowd, where it's not, they're animating every single character and overlap in that crowd. And they don't do one shot, they do 6 shots, you know? And it's just like, what that? You know, that kind of level of commitment, knowing how difficult it is, you know, is stunning. You know, there's a from an artist side, there's that's incredibly impressive, right? Holy cow, they went there and they didn't pull their punches. They actually embraced that challenge and that difficulty. And then the storyteller in me can appreciate the storytelling of it, because I was pushing. You can feel that pushing through the crowd, that there's an intensity to that character wanting to get through, and this is a blocker in their way, right? I have to catch up with my other contact in this crowd because they're getting around watching this unfair thing that's happening, you know? So impressive on 2 levels.
I mean, we could, I'm sure it's an onion's worth of levels as far as how much can go into a scene, because as I'm sure you know, being an animator isn't just drawing what you see. It's not even whether it's from reference or in your mind. You have to fill the need of the story in a single frame, in 24 frames, over the course of 2 hours, over the course of a season, a series. That's so much to take in for a person holding a pencil, especially for a single shot that may be glimpsed in such a pre-programmed edit so far in advance. Speaking of, so we've talked about Mark, the animator, the baby animator who's ready to like take on the world. I kind of want to skip ahead a little bit, and I want to talk about Mark, the storyboarder, like Mark, the person who's like in their career, who's like put in their time, has started to like finally find that path, and is like not necessarily the struggle and the pitch journey. Every artist has heard a variation of that. I want to talk about, well, no, that's not fair. I do want to talk about the community that maybe got you into your room or into your space. And then I kind of want to see how that fed into you as being a storyboarder and starting to get into directing. And what was that journey like for you? What was it like from graduation to like the moment you're like, oh, I've paid my bills doing this? Like, what was that like for you?
That was so kind of pushing against the envelope of what animation is and expected, right? I got identified by one of the 9 old men, Mark Davis, came to the producer's show, and I was up drawing. I was not interested in the producer's show and hobnobbing and all that stuff. One of my teachers sends one of the students. It was my story teacher, and I liked story and taking the story classes. I thought it was really fun. Coming up with my own stories because I could tell whatever I wanted. Send this kid up. I don't remember if it was my brother or not, but somebody goes, Ken Bruce wants you to come down because there's Mark Davis wants to meet you. I'm all, what? Mark Davis? So I run down, and Mark Davis had, we each get like a, 2 by 3 foot square to put up our work for all the graduating students to come in and, for the producer show and all that stuff. And Mark Davis was very old. He was there with his wife. And he said, I just wanted to meet you, young man. You're a very talented artist, right? These are some great drawings, right? And he's, one of the best draftsmen of the 9 old men and designed Pirates of the Caribbean and everything else. So I'm all, wow, thanks. Nice to meet you, Mr. Davis. He walks away, and Ken Bruce looks at me, just kind of a proud storyboard teacher going, do you know what this means? And I'm all, no, I do have no idea what this means. It was nice that he liked my stuff, right? But I got into the Disney internship. They had the Disney interns, they had moved everybody from Glendale and off the campus over to Florida for several years. Mm-hmm. When I graduated, they had just moved it all back to Flower Street in Glendale and all these warehouses. So the animation program was back here in California, or the animation studio, most of it. So I was one of 5 that got hired in the internship, and that was really great. We had the top people in Disney teaching us animation by Glenn Keane and Dave Pruxma and Ed Gombert teaching us story, and the top cleanup artists and in-between artists and effects artists. So it was all summer, 3 months of amazing. At the end of that, they asked you, each of you, to do a presentation to see what you've been hired. And I had been pushing the whole time at CalArts with being an animator, right? Wanting to animate, make it live, make it breathe, animate. Not realizing that the most fun that I have of my imagination was in story, right? Coming up with my idea for the film that year, working on that, boarding that, trying to get it just right. And I did several story assignments for Ed Gombert, which were all great. But at the end of that, I'm all, well, I really love story, but I love animation too. So I'm the only one out of 5 who put up 2 presentations because I wanted Disney to pick. I figured let fate do it, right? If they pick animation, fine. I'll work even harder and be an animator. They see that I have something. If they pick story, fantastic. Story it is. There you go.
So you're putting your fate in the hands of greatness right now.
Yes.
Okay.
So that pissed off or ruffled the feathers of all the people who ran the internship. I was the only one out of 5 who didn't get hired. And that started the next 2 years of being blacklisted at Disney. My portfolio was not seen. I would turn it in, wait several months, get it back, turn it back in. And then I was forced to. And so I took that as a, wow, I'm just going to go story then. Because if I have to pick myself, if you put a gun to my head, it's going to be story. So I redid my portfolio, made it story-centric, put it back into Disney. No answer. And then I was at CalArts. I was trying to get a job out there in the industry and was picking up these little freelance things. I worked for Chuck Jones for a hot minute, which was interesting. But my regular day job is I would be at CalArts 3 days a week, co-teaching the fencing and stage combat course.
Oh, fun!
Yes, so that was my day job. So
I'm sorry, as a theater as a theater kid, who went into trying to be an actor and found stagehand as a survival gig. I find a little bit of sick serendipity in an animator finding a survival gig teaching stage combat, makes complete sense why stage combat and all those things thrive in a town like this where there's so little theater, because there are so many animators looking for reference in live action for animation. Also, what a beautiful way to hone your skills as a as a figure model and also as an animator, then using your body for things and understanding how it works. That's fascinating. That's me laughing at the
whole
universe.
another podcast.
Yeah,
yes, whole another podcast. I mean, the artist. So that was my day job. And I'd check in with my, with the teachers at CalArts there all the time. And one of the teachers, Cornelius Cole, was amazing guy. He said, "Hey, my friend, they're just starting up Johnny Quest again." And I'm all, "Really? Do they need some help?" They're all, "Yeah, I already told them, go down and do an interview." So I took my portfolio down at the old Hanna-Barbera building that was right there off of Barham. And lots of history there for Hanna-Barbera. Watched almost all their freaking shows that came out on Saturday morning,
Same. I mean, they syndicated that for years.
Yeah. I mean, Johnny Quest is one of my favorite, animated television series of all time. Went in there, met with their line producer, showed my portfolio. She hired me that day. And I'm all, and this was a Wednesday. And to this day, I still don't know why I did this. I'm all, "Can I actually start Monday?" The following Monday? And she's all taken back and said, "Yeah, sure." But I came back in and started Monday, and I was just boarding on that. I did 5 episodes.
That's amazing.
All by myself, 22 minutes. I learned a little bit of After Effects because we were making our own reels to make things move, to hand it all over to
for a little bit of context. This was, I think I know the cartoon you're talking about. This was a Johnny Quest reboot. Remind me, what year was this?
The Real Adventures of Johnny Quest. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I remember watching that growing up. I think this was around the time. Was this around like the reboot era where we're just dipping our toe in VFX? Because if I remember correctly, was it Voltron or was it G-Man? Like there was an anime that came out that was another reimagining along with the Johnny Quest. Like one of you guys chicken and egged each other, but that was like
it was the other guys. Johnny Quest was the first to kind of kick it all off. Yeah. And then came the Voltron several years later and everything else. Yeah.
So here you are, like kind of like finding this poignant time in animation where we're kind of entering the first dalliances of reboot content and like revival content. But also, if I remember, Real Adventures of Johnny Quest had some like kind of forward thinking like animation for the time. I mean, I need to pull it up and look at it for myself, but
it did. We were using a Japanese animation studio instead of a Korean animation studio, which was typical back then.
Right.
And it was more adult intent stories. It was PG-13. I mean, the kids in the original Johnny Quest, they're like under 15, right? In this Johnny Quest, they were full-on high schoolers, right? And Race Bannon had a daughter who can kick ass, and so it was way more high tech, and they pushed. And now that they're semi-adults, we can do a lot more gun shooting and stuff like that. The restrictions that was back then, right, were kind of lifted on the stuff that we can do now. So we were doing some really fun, amazing episodes. But that was. And we were doing stuff that was in my wheelhouse. This is the stuff that I wanted to do. That was adventure, that was intense in the story, that had these great characters, that I could put them in real peril, right? And they're facing off with all the stuff that I love, which is, cryptoids or whatever, Xeno and UFOs and, all the occult stuff. It was like, we're in, baby. This is awesome.
Can you tell us a little bit about how your passion in storytelling kind of got you dipping into video games a little bit?
Well, that was one of those freelance jobs that just popped up in my dark when I wasn't getting any jobs, despite hustling, and that's where we call the community, the CalArts Mafia. That's all of us friends, that not just the ones that graduated with me, but even the ones in the years after and the years ahead. It's a fairly tight community, and we're going out there in animation, and everybody's getting blown to all the studios. At the time when I graduated, there was only Disney, right? But shortly after I graduated, that's when the animation boom hit, and DreamWorks kind of created, and Warner Brothers kind of created, and all these other studios just kind of, and they multiplied, and all sorts of stuff. So there was a lot happening, and everybody was going every which where. And I remember getting a call from I mean, it was so long ago, I can't remember exactly who, but I know my brother, my other friend, Dave Krentz, we were all involved with a couple other people, but they needed artists on this thing quick for such and such a time to do such and such a thing. So we just all jumped on it because we weren't, you know, we hadn't landed these jobs in studios where you just kind of stay forever. Right. And we did it, you know, shortly after we graduated, I think. And it was fun, you know, it's just fun. We were all sitting in the same room together, kind of drawing stuff and coming up ideas about it. And that was that community again, you know, is that we all had the same influences. We all had the same things that we really wanted to work on that animation wasn't doing yet. And so Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, we love the original comic book, right? We had them. And so to be a part of that was really fun to do, you know, because that's what we were chasing.
I want to take our next break because I am super excited to hear about what I'm going to call the current act of Mark Andrews, which is everything I've gleaned from this conversation up to the current day, and as recently as Super Giant Robot Bros. And I swear my dyslexia is going to challenge me to get that right every time I say it. So when we come back, we're going to talk to Mark Andrews about some of the things that he did to change the game a little bit in animation and the exciting potential that I can't wait to get into about it. We'll be right back with this episode of Guest of Friends right after this round of messages, everybody. Merch, 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 merch. Merch, 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 merch. That's right, everybody. We've got merch. If you need Guys, Gals, and Non-Bine Pals tank tops, tees, and hoodies, don't worry, because we've also got fanny packs. Head over to nestofriends.org, head to the store in our online shop, and see all of the goodies that you can wear and feel good about wearing because you're supporting your favorite nonprofit and podcast at the same time when you do it. Head over to nestofriends.org, click on the store button, see all the cool stuff that we've designed for you just in time for Pride and for all of your everyday carry needs. Okay, let's head back to our conversation with Mark. Guys, gals, non-bine pals, Nesties, one and all, big and small, welcome back. We are talking with director, storyteller, storyboard artist, stage combatter, katana aficionado, Mark Andrews, today on the podcast. Mark, I want to talk about the current era of your journey as a creative, as an artist, but also as like a convention breaker, because I think from what I've learned about my research in your career, during your time on Brave, a 3D film, you used traditional 2D storyboarding. Was that correct during that process?
Yes.
And it sounds like that was frustrating for you in the conventions because you're doing 2D storyboarding, but by the time we're doing Brave in our era of content creation and of making films, we've gotten to a place with we're seeing the conventions break down between 2D storyboarding for 3D storytelling. And then you get this idea to use performance capture. What was that like for you? And what was that journey up until getting to actually execute it with Super Giant Robot Brothers? Tell us about that. And more importantly, tell us what it was like sharing that idea with people now that you're established in your career. And how did you find people to get on board? And maybe what people did you scare away? Like, what was that like?
Sure. So I had, after Incredibles, Pixar asked me to direct. Right? Brad Bird threw my hat in the ring. And so I went into development and started coming up with my own ideas to see if there was there with this kind of stuff I wanted to do and the kind of stuff that Pixar does, that brand. Along that course, the opportunity came to work on John Carter of Mars, which Andrew Stanton was also a fan of. So when I told Pixar in one of the development meetings after Ratatouille, because I came out of development to help Brad with Ratatouille, once that was finished, I went back into development to come up with ideas. And they asked me, what ideas do I want to do? And I said, I want to do John Carter of Mars. So there is a universe where John Carter of Mars was animated and it was a Pixar film.
Really?
Yes. So Andrew, being on that, panel of all the directors and, the vice president of creative, comes to me and says, let's not do it as an animated film. Let's do it as a live action film. We'll co-direct and co-write. So I went off and did that. And the epiphany was that this was a process that moves as fast as I can think. I have the set, I have the actors, I've got the lights. If something's not working, I can fix it right then and there. I can change the lighting, I can recompose the camera, right? I had all the elements. So when I came back and I'm back into an animated film, Brave, and I'm going through the whole process, suddenly my mind is very fast. And animation is very slow, right? And it hadn't really hit me until that point because I didn't have the contrasting approach, right? So I was really frustrated because a lot of water goes under the bridge, and I go, now that I'm seeing this all done, since it's taken this long to get it done, I would like to change. And it's like, no, you can't, because that'll cost another gazillion dollars. I only had so many times that I can actually do those final adjustments. And so I realized there's something very, very, very wrong with this animation pipeline because it takes away for an artist, and especially a storyteller, discovery. Discovery is everything, right? Happy accidents is everything. I mean, when I'm drawing, I'm not drawing it and it's perfect right off the bat. I work the sketch, right? You find it as you go because you're understanding what you're making. Every line that I do, that's why when we sketch, it's like 100,000 little lines and wiggles and squiggles and stuff like this because I'm exploring. I have an idea of what I want, but I'm exploring. So live action was able to absorb that type of real-time iteration when animation can't. There's too much money being involved. There's too much time that it takes to build these assets and da-da-da-da. But long story short, what I also realized was that the tools, the 3D tools, were so much freaking faster than we were using them, that they got so fast that you can throw away stuff, which is what we do in art all the time. I throw away a sketch, I abandon that, I get another idea, start with a fresh piece of paper. So we can throw away things, which is important in this idea of discovery. So I saw what James Cameron was doing using mocap for Avatar. I saw what Peter Jackson was doing using motion caption for to even build scenes and explore scenes in Lord of the Rings. And I saw what even Michael Bay was doing for Transformers, where he would get in and rough stuff with proxies on a mocap stage, just extruding cubes to be buildings and then playing with almost like mocap puppets to figure out paths and where I'm going to be for the things. And then he sends it upstairs to ILM and said, here's the shots. Now make it animate it, make it look good. So there was my brain was thinking, they are using this stuff to think and plan and figure it out as cheap as they can to then lock it down to then finish it. So I knew there was a there. I just didn't know exactly how. So when I was done with Brave, I went to Jim Morris and Ed Catmull, the presidents of Pixar, and I said, I want to do this differently. The animation pipeline, I want to throw out 2D altogether. Just get rid of it, because that's not the same context as 3D. It's two different mediums. And what we're making is ultimately in 3D. So why would I even work in 2D? If the tools are just as fast and I'm making my decisions on 3D, right? If I draw a tooth for a dinosaur in 2D, that's not enough information for the guy who's got to model it in 3D. So all the worry and nitpicking I'm doing over this artist's drawing of a dinosaur and his tooth is now wasted time. Because when I turn it into 3D, now I'm wrestling with trying to get this 2D thing, which is a completely different reality than the 3D thing is. I should only be working in context. And that idea of working in context was the big epiphany. So they said, great, let's work with ILM. And ILM, Kim Library, they had their little 50 by 50 foot volume mocap stage. And so we spent a couple of months and breaking things and getting in there and me understanding what you can do in mocap, what you can't do, how you break what I want to do. Can I get 5 characters at a time only using 2 mocap actors? Yes, you can record and then we can go back and they can play the next 2 and we record and additive. And so I was developing a whole pipeline of system that I then brought back to Pixar, and they built me a mocap stage. So when you talked about how did I get people to come along, it was almost easy, completely easy, because I was doing something nobody else was doing in the industry. I was using a hammer as scissors, in a weird analogy, and getting fantastic results for a hammer being scissors, right? I'm a C- student at best. I say this all the time. Growing up and in high school, because I really didn't care. That's not where my heart and my mind was. I was just doing it to pass in our social environment. This is just something that you have to do, is go to school, right? So it's like, fine, what's the minimum I need to do to pass? That's all I'll do, because I have other important things, my drawings and stuff. So I couldn't believe that nobody was seeing these tools and not using them this way, right? And so I said, this is what I want to do, and nobody's ever done it before. I'm at Pixar, which is based off innovation. Most of the people who've been there, especially from the tools department, have PhDs, and I mean, all sorts of crazy, super smart people. They want to do the impossible. They want to do the thing that nobody's done before. So I had a bunch who were tired of the same old, and jumped on board. So I had this tiny little almost instantaneous community. As soon as I put up a torch in the wilderness saying, anybody want to come with me on this? I have no idea how this is going to go out. Voop, everybody jumped on board. And some very, very smart, talented people. So we were figuring it out together. And that snowballs. So there was this quote. There was that great show, The Actors Workshop, where that guy from New York would, I forget his name, sorry.
James Lipton would
interview the actors and ask them all this. So it was a regular lunchtime show that I would watch when I come home from work for lunch, because I could walk to work when I was working at Warner Brothers. But Anthony Hopkins, he asked them a quote, right? And Anthony Hopkins' quote was, "Be bold and mighty forces will come to your aid." Anthony Hopkins had no idea who actually said it. He referenced Goethe, but it wasn't. Goethe was actually referencing somebody else, so it's anonymous, this quote. So when me and my wife got married, I mean, it was such a big thing to me that was kind of my whole thing growing up, ADHD and having anxiety and stuff, that my wife realizes later in our lives, watching our kids grow up and their stuff. But so I had her, she got it engraved on my wedding ring. So it's with me all the time. Be bold and mighty forces will come to your aid. So that's what I've always done all the time in my career. I don't care if I look like a fool, if I look like an idiot, if I'm going to be proved wrong or whatnot. I'm not interested in the safe, conventional, low-key kind of life. If it's something that's important to me, I'm gonna chase it. So that's what this was at Pixar, is, can I use these tools? Is my hypothesis correct? And I checked in with all the technical directors, or our super smart guys who handle all the visual tech and stuff for Pixar. I went to each one of them and asked them, am I fucking crazy? Can we do this? They said, I don't know why not. So we pursued this whole thing, and then I had everybody. It snowballed. Pixar built me a 60 by 70 foot mocap volume to get into this business. And the whole idea is, for you listeners, is we're not making a mocap film. We're not doing that. All mocap becomes is my pencil. I have real time. I get the actors on the stage. They're being mocap. So when I look through a virtual camera, I'm seeing their CG characters. I have the CG environment. So I'm getting the best of live action, the real time, and I'm getting the best of animation, which is in mocap. You can mocap anything. I can make them levitate. I can do superpowers. I can make them do crazy ass stunts that would hurt a normal person, but doesn't hurt them. So there's a bunch of tricks that we can do in using this technology that benefits.
And this is all through Unreal. This is accessible technology.
Not yet.
Oh,
this was all just Vicon working with Pixar's proprietary software, right? So it's all working. So everything that we recorded, and like in the music industry, when they say tape is cheap, just do another take. I can do that. So I don't even have to have the scene figured out. So I'm going to get really passionate about this because this is what I love.
Do it.
I don't have to have it all sorted out like you have to do in animation, right? I can explore ideas because tape is cheap. The digital capture is cheap. It's just data, right? That I can use or throw out or whatnot. I can just do another one and it's faster. I'm one of the fastest storyboard artists there is, right, in the world. I'm sure now there's plenty of others who are faster than me, but I think so fast I could draw fast and da-da-da. I put up, 100 panels in a day of a sequence, not a problem, right? Woo. But having a virtual camera and filming the action that just went on, now I'm coveraging it. Right, I'm shooting coverage, so I'm shooting left, right, up, down, backwards, da da da. I change things, shoot it again, faster than I can ever draw. So I could give it to my editor, and in a day they have a full cut that can then go off to be animated. If we like it, it's like that's approved. And so I'm getting a chance to see my movie in context, not just scenes. I build the whole movie, and so I'm working in context of the whole movie, like I'm working in context of a whole drawing. Until you finally put down a piece of paper and this is it. Now I'm tying it down. I'm doing the sweet rendering and I'm putting all the scales on the dinosaur. I'm making sure those teeth are serrated and I'm putting in shadows. I'm putting it, all that stuff to make it just gorgeous off the loose, rough sketch that takes me no time at all just to figure it out. So now I have this process that moves faster than drawing, right? And it takes, and we put it to the test. It takes a storyboard team of about 8 artists to do a whole movie. It takes about 800 labor weeks. That if it was one person doing it all, it's 800 labor weeks. This, if we were doing it all, put out a whole movie, now fully CG and animated with all the camera moves in there and everything working, all the context you need in an actual movie, it takes 1,000 labor weeks. So I'm saying at the end of the day, sure, storyboard's faster, but they don't have a movie. It's not moving. It's not animated. It doesn't have any of this subtlety that the camera brings to the story, to the moment. So, long story short, 2018, there's not a there with my movie ideas and what Pixar's brand is. I'm a PG-13 R-rated storyteller at heart, trapped in a G-rated world, right? Mutual admiration society. We shook hands, parted ways. I'm stumbling around Hollywood, pitching only this pipeline, right? Even if you don't have Unreal, this would save you half the money, right? Every production, even in live action of big special effects, things like Marvel movies or Star Wars movies, if they did this, they can cut their budget, slash it in half, because all it is let's make the movie in a proxy rough version first and get it wired. Then we could spend the big bucks. Now I could bring in the actors. We could shoot on the green screens. I could model everything to it at an inch of its life, and we could shoot it. We know exactly what to make, and we only have to make it once. It's that change of not knowing what we're making, being in we're spending the money already that is doomed Hollywood to $500 million, pictures, right? That maybe won't make $1 billion. So. So as I'm going around pitching at studios and stuff like this, I stumble upon Real Effects. I pitch them my ideas. These are all great. We want to work with you. We have this one currently that we're working on called Supergiant Robot Brothers. And I saw it, and they had it developed for 2 years. And it's coming to that point where we got to actually do something with it. It's going to go where? How would you do it? And I'm all, well, I had a slight asterisk. I had met the guys at Fox Labs. Just before this, it was a wing of Fox Animation that was set up with Glenn Derry and his team, who built all the rigs that James Cameron now uses to do all this mocap. And they were doing exactly what I was figuring out at Pixar, but they were using Unreal. That was the last little element That was the powerhouse element that I didn't know anything about or have way in. I knew the game engines, people were doing stuff. I saw their Mouse Guard trailer that they did, and it was fantastic. So I got in touch with them, talked to them. Then I was over at Real Effects. I'm all, well, I would do it in this pipeline, right? I do all the episodes in a rough proxy version, all in Unreal, using mocap, and then we could budget it out and and you can have it for half the cost. So they went sold. And so eventually I came on to direct the Supergiant Robot Brothers. So we retooled it. It was first to be very young, like elementary school, you know, very young. And I'm all, I don't want to do that. Let's age it up. So we made it PG. I wanted to go where they're dropping F-bombs and stuff, but Netflix wasn't interested. So we ended up in PG and super fun. And you know, it's such a beautiful, fabulous story with all these characters. Just a workaholic mom who's a teenage mom who has two children, essentially.
Yeah.
One she made when she was 4 years old. The other she made when she was a teen. So there's two sides of her identity, and these siblings fighting with each other all the time. And they got to save the world from constant kaiju threats from outer space. So I'm in, and it's very fun, right? But what I can do is we for the budget, we made it a very simple graphic look. Right, I didn't want any textures or anything, just flat colors. We'll use the lighting that we get for free in Unreal to add detail. We'll use volumetrics, which do stuff for depth as the detail. And then what I can bring in, the sophistication, is the camera work, the cinematography, and the editing, which we do not have in animation.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that was watching those first few episodes when it came out, because I do remember your demo video on the technology that came out, kind of promoting why this show was so strikingly different from even CG, which was kind of what it was on the bus and billboards. But when you got to see it, even in the few clips in the teaser, and then even seeing your passion about this process to kind of like show people like why this is different and why that's great. Like that's, and I love your point earlier about, you know, because I love drawing 2D. I love drawing in pencil on real life. I love drawing real things with graphite. I also enjoy drawing digitally. When people ask me, what do you prefer more? It's like, it's not a matter of what I prefer more. They both fulfill completely different needs. They both enable me to create communication visually. That's the thing. I get such a different feeling when I draw with pencil versus when I draw with a stylus. But ultimately, I'm fulfilling that ultimate desire. Here's this thing that's up here. Now it's in a real world where it's not just in my head. And I think you hit that point beautifully, where a traditional artist, a traditional storyteller, especially at a time when technology is still changing, and it's been changing for most of my life, and sounds like the entirety of your career. I think being able to say, yes, no, I understand you're used to this traditional path. This is the way it's always been done. But I think every great artist, every great storyteller is looking for new ways, not just to make something, but to change how you make something is also a form of talent. It's a form of technique. And where some people might think, oh, you're taking away like 800 hours of labor work for storyboarders for maybe this project, but think of all the other projects in the future that will be created at the same time, because technology is innovating pipeline, and that does come with a sunken cost and loss to it, which I'm very aware of, especially as a young freelancing artist who's trying to thrive and survive in this career. But also as a storyteller, there are the same tools that you're making Netflix animation with that I can download for free. And if I've got the processing and if I've got the time, I mean, I've seen demos of pitch and pilot passion animations on YouTube that honestly make a lot of traditional stuff from even 5 years ago kind of gassed, and like, you know, make you really see what passion can kind of curate when people are really driven and they give themselves a chance to try something new, whether it's for themselves or, in your case, with the industry and the community that you had spent your entire life, Mark, like from
Yeah.
your brother who from your CalArts mafia to all the degens that you met along the way as a guy who got rejected by Disney, but later ended up like kind of spearheading a lot of stuff for them. Like that's a heck of a journey. That's one, kudos to you, my friend. Like quite a journey, quite a life, quite an amazing passion to share with the world. And I think honestly, I couldn't think of a better way to end our first episode than having had you for a guest. Really, thank you for sharing all of this. For those who are here with us, thank you for listening to the first episode of Guest of Friends. For those who are subscribing to our tier on Substack, Mark and I are going to hang out for a minute. He's going to give me a prompt, and you can watch that on the Substack. If you subscribe, make sure to see all the stuff we do there, get information on all of our upcoming events and our weekly live stream. But Mark, I just wanted to say thank you for sharing this time with us and sharing your story, your journey, your heart with our community. And I honestly would love to chat with you again down the line, because I feel like we've only really scratched
Let's
the
do it
surface.
anytime.
Yeah,
Anytime.
scratched the surface of this. So if there's anything you would like our listeners to know, I want to give you a couple minutes to please either, if you want to send us with a closing thought or a closing anything. I just wanted to give you a chance to say what you wanted to before we wrap up.
Thanks, Sketch. I really appreciate that. And on your inaugural launch of this, which will be a fantastic podcast and turn into a beast like all your other endeavors,
thank you.
and creating these fantastic communities. I think the only thing that I want to leave everybody with is be bold, and mighty forces will come to your aid.
I'm glad you set it up, because I wrote it down, and I think that's also a beautiful example of how things you may not know in the world ultimately can be small, but for some people they can lead to big change. And I think that's another testament to why we do what we do here with Nest of Friends, is reminding people that even the smallest bit of inspiration, the thing that you create that you may not think anyone thinks of, that you may not even realize what you're saying or what you're doing or what time it is or where eyes and ears and hearts may be on you at the time. But I think just like Anthony Hopkins through James Lipton kind of inspired such a pivotal moment in your life. I hope that more artists, more people can leave this conversation with a more open heart and ear. And if they haven't found that moment or that inspiration in their life, that they'll be more receptive to it. So Mark, thank you so much for being here. We're going to wrap up this podcast. Come find us if you want to see the bonus draw along, but thank you, Mark. Really, I've been Sketch Williams. This has been our talk with Mark Andrews. Join us again for another episode of Guest of Friends on all the places and all the spaces, and we'll see you soon. I am so grateful to Mark Andrews for being the very first guest on Guest of Friends. If you want to check out the rest of the conversation and how much nerding out we got to do, make sure to check out nestoffriends.substack.com and sign up for the premium account. You'll gain access to the extended conversation I got to have with Mark, and you'll be able to see the speed through video I did of my drawing based on the suggestion that he makes at the end of the podcast. If you are looking to join and gain more access to a bunch of exclusive content, don't worry, we're going to have an exclusive chat for everyone who signs up so that you can ask me anything and get a direct line of communication with me. And I'll also be doing some watch-alongs where I'll also be drawing. So come join me for that exclusive content right over at nestoffriends.substack.com. Head over to the paid premium account and you can get all of these goodies directly in your inbox. But don't forget to like and leave a comment wherever you're listening to this to help us grow and reach even more people so that they too can support their favorite non-for-profit Nest of Friends wherever they are. Remember, nestoffriends.substack.com. Sign up for that premium account and gain access to a whole bunch more goodies. As for our next podcast guest, well, you'll just have to subscribe and find out who that is when it drops. All right, Nesties, I've been Sketch Williams, and I'll see you soon. Mwah! Guest of Friends was created and produced by Jennifer Martina and Sketch Williams, hosted by Sketch Williams, featuring music composed by Libby Ward with lyrics and vocals provided by Jennifer Martina. Cover art for Guest of Friends was created by Mitra Katsuyoshi. Guest of Friends is brought to you by Nest of Friends. Our mission as Nesties is to provide the kind of third space our world deserves through creativity, with community, with craft and care. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below on Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, and everywhere you're experiencing this podcast so that more people can discover it and help create a better world, one act of creativity with kindness at a time.
Join Nest of Friends as we just like friends, become best of friends on Guest of Friends.